Okay. I've got a few things to read tonight. Let me find something real quick. So we'll give Christy a verse and she's ready. We're gonna give her Song of Solomon 2:15. Let's keep going on here. Ginger, let's give you 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. We'll give Karen, we're going to give her 1 John 2:16. 2:16. Let's give Tony James chapter 1, 13 and 14.
Okay.
And Courtney, what are you eating back there?
What? I'm making a mess right
I'm going to give you Matthew, eat, drink it, don't wear it. Matthew 15, 18 through 20.
You know what?
Who's hiding?
No,
He-
no,
he-
I'm sitting here.
he read last- he
You're
read-
doing this.
He's going to start that. He read last week.
And this. No, no.
Brandon. Let's give Brandon Proverbs 4, verses 14 and 15. Proverbs 4, verses 14 and 15. Write this down for Tim. We'll give him 2 Timothy 2:22. 2 and 22. What'd I give you, Tony?
James.
Okay, just checking, make sure. Okay, we're stopping there for just a second. So, let's see which one I had first. Nope. Now, some in here, well, most of the ones in here will know this, but do you know that I actually found one of them actual. Yeah, but do you remember the actual VHS rewinders? It was just made to rewind just the VCR tape. Somebody had somebody posted today. Want to know if anybody knew what it was, and there was all these people guessing, and not one of them, which most of them was young people, but not one of them knew what it was. And Courtney's old enough to know.
Yes.
She was.
We're not reminding them all the time.
You didn't rewind.
Yeah.
So while
We
we're
lived at the place to rent on the weekends. Friday night.
Yeah.
We were there with 3 new releases.
yeah,
Every Friday night.
but you didn't rewind them.
Those were DVDs.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Back in the day, I didn't remember VHS.
Okay, I just checked. So while we're rewinding tonight, let's rewind back a week ago and what did we cover last week? Okay, what about it?
Something, somewhere, something.
What's that mean?
I don't know. That's what you said.
That's 3 words,
I
but
wrote it down.
why did you write it down? What did it mean?
Yeah, that's, you want to read that.
I will die trying.
You'll die trying.
I can do it with the lid.
Okay,
I will be obedient and follow. Do something new.
okay. So we did talk about the fact of that out of all the ones that left Egypt going to the promised land, how many went in?
Two.
Two. And one other remains, and that was whose?
Joseph.
Joseph. What did they take?
Bones.
His bones. Why'd they do it? What was the purpose in
He
that?
asked them to.
Yeah, but why did he want them to do it?
Make it the promised land.
Okay, what else? Why did he want them to carry his bones?
Carry his what?
Bones?
Bible.
No, bones.
Oh.
He wanted to take his bones to the promised land, but why did he want them to
He
do
wanted
it?
to be buried in the promised land.
Okay, but why?
God said he would go.
Huh? He wanted them to remember.
Uh-huh.
What did he want them to remember?
What God told him.
Okay,
Promised him.
okay.
Commandments.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some of it. What else did we discuss last week?
Carry the legacy.
Huh?
Carry the legacy.
Yeah, carrying the legacy. We also talked about, out of those three, we talked about Joseph, then we talked about Caleb,
Yep.
which meant, what did that stand for?
Dog.
A dog. Yeah. And you needed dog faith to be persistent in what you were doing in your mission to carry things out. And then Joshua was also a symbolic sign of being a what?
Deliverer.
A deliverer. And we talked about all of our attitudes. So first we went to all of the watching. Watching is imperative and watching is important. But while we're studying watching here and using our word watch, we first started with the need to watch our words. That was our first one. And then we started needing to watch our attitude. Then we come down to the last, or not the last, but the next one we're studying tonight is the letter T. Something else we need to watch.
Temper.
Huh?
Temper.
That'd be a good one, but no. We'll throw that in there in a minute. It'll get there, don't worry.
Temptations.
So, since Chris Mabe's using this strange word here, I just want him to tell us what that word means.
I thought the word was self-explanatory. I don't know.
Well, I just want you to tell us what you think. What do y'all think this word means? Give me what you say this word means, huh? Okay.
Something that's not good for you. But
Put it out there in front of you.
put it, yeah. Kind of dangle in front of you to make you want it.
Okay. Anybody else got any definition words for the word temptation?
Something pleasing to the
Do what?
Or a 50s and 60s singing group.
Yeah, that if you put an S on them, we got a singing group. What else? And what else that fits into the what you say this word really means? If we
To tempt somebody to draw them away from right.
okay. So the first thing we need to look at two angles. First of all, let's look at it this way. The devil has a purpose in all temptations. And one of those purposes in all of his things that he does to tempt everyone is he causes you to have a drag effect. A drag effect. And what is the devil's job when there is a drag effect on you? What's he dragging you to?
Down.
Down. Because that's the only reason he needs to do anything to do is to get a hold and drag you. I mean, it's a dragging situation. And for those who do not know the Lord in any form of by the way of salvation, then the whole ultimate goal with those is to drag them into hell. That's one of the reasons why that some places, Bible studies, lexicons, different references talks about the Bible even referencing hell as a pit. Because once you start to fall, it's just like a pit. Once you start to fall, you just continually go down and down and down. And one of the things that's interesting about temptation is that we always need to remember that we are in a war. There is no war coming. Let's get this in our mind right now before we start. There's no war coming. You're in it. See, you're already on your way somewhere, whether it be heaven or hell. You're already on your way. You're headed there right now. It's not a journey that we're going to start later. You're already on your way. So because of that, you're also in a war that has no purpose or intent. What do you think if you're in the army, United States military, and you fight against another country? What is their whole goal against you? Huh? Yeah, to destroy, completely just destroy you, wipe you out completely. And one of the things that we look at when dealing with the word temptation is a few simple things. Let's look at a few simple things with the word temptations. First of all, it's constant. Temptation is constant. A little boy one time told his grandfather that he was feeling very tempted to do something, and he asked his grandfather. He said, "Just when will this stop?" And his grandfather said, "Well, I don't know. I'm 80 and it's still going." So we need to realize, first of all, that our temptations in general, as a whole, no matter the way we look at anything, it is constant. The second thing we need to realize, and this was one that I think a lot of Christians get a little different jaded view of, is there is no exemption. There is no exemption from temptation. No one is exempt from this. Whether you're tempted to quit or return to things that you've overcame in the past, get into something that's going to ruin you, all those things, you think about all those things. There's nobody exempt from temptation. And one of the things that I liked that I read the other day about temptation that an author wrote that was really good is he said, if you ever want to take in temptation and understand it for yourself, it's the same as someone persistently knocking on your door. Persistently at your door knocking. You ever get them? Okay, I'll give you a good example of temptation. How many of you all in here get robocalls on your cell phone?
Yeah.
How many you get?
All of them.
All of them. They keep coming. One right after. They are the best at persistence all the time. And how tempted are you to answer because the local numbers are now appearing and you don't know if it could be somebody you know?
If it's possible, I'll try to answer it.
So if it's not, so you try to answer it. And how many of them are robocalls?
99.9%.
So you were tempted to answer the phone because the number was a Knoxville number and you was worried to death that Chris was down there winning the Nobel Peace Prize and he was calling to tell you about it.
I was waiting for my check.
So that's what I'm saying. So the temptation's there. It's constant. It's a persistent knock at the door. Now, one of the things that's interesting about it that takes a slight turn about dealing with temptation is that rather than having what you want, there will come a time when the temptations will have you. See, we all the time in our minds think we've got those temptations under control and at hand, and we think we've got them all right here at the end, just sitting right here under control, under our thumb, so to speak, that we've got it. But the truth really is that rather than having what you want out of a temptation or giving into something, there comes a time when the temptations have you. I want you to think about it this way as an analogy of what temptation is as a tool. And I'm just going to give it to you the simplest way of what the devil does with this, but as an avenue for you to think about something, get this in your head. This is the devil. And right now, at this very moment, you're being studied. Just like a sniper. You are being studied. He is watching you every single moment of the day. Anytime that he can watch you, he's going to. He is plotting and planning anything coming up that he can put in front of you. So, number one, we cannot afford to be relaxed about an issue of being tempted because you have the target that I gave you a couple weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I gave you the target that you've got on your back at all times because the devil is out. Remember, the more that he can take out now to win more to go, the better off he's going to be. So because of this, you got to always think about the fact of you always have to use some type of caution when being vigilant. We see all the time that these shootings that go on all over America all the time. And you know, the first thing they start doing is they start looking at all the rooftops to see who was on the roof shooting. Why didn't they look before we got there? Why didn't they look at that specific spot and angle before it ever happened? How did they not catch that? How did the security and law enforcement not find it? All these measures need to be taken. Now the question comes there is, who has the most influence on us? Who do we listen to? Who are we paying attention to and listening to that has some type of influence on us? Now, this is a very random analogy, but it works pretty good. I was watching something the other night, and I don't know, did anybody know anything about the Kentucky Reptile Zoo? Anybody ever been? The Kentucky Reptile Zoo, have you ever been? It's just up here right above Pikeville. And you can go, they let you go. But one of the things they do there, which I've been once already, it's very neat to go. They've got a room that you go in, and it's about this size, really. And you sit kind of in an ovation situation there, and there's a huge glass window. I mean, huge glass window, and you're right on top of it. And what they're doing in this room is this right here. This is what they're doing at the Kentucky Reptile Zoo. They are milking all of the poisonous snakes. For what purpose?
Make sure medicine.
Okay. What all can we do with venom from the snake?
Make medicine.
Okay, what else? What kind of medicine? Okay. Huh?
Pain medication.
Okay, pain medication. What else? What can we do with it? I'll give you a little interesting thing to think about. You know, most patients that we get that snake bit, we don't give antivenoms to. We give a medication that's made to reverse the effects of it. It's $10,000 a vial, and we give you 4 vials the first dose. You get another round of them in 4 hours, but it's not antivenom. Antivenom is so specific and so rared down to certain parts of the snake bite victims that we don't give it first line of defense because we don't really have. Well, there's no hospital here has it. I'll just put it that way. Where's the closest hospital that has antivenom? Anybody know?
Probably like to
Huh? UT's got some.
Nashville.
Vandy's got it. Louisville's got it. UK has some. So you're 120 miles, best shot, depending on where you're at, or at least to Knoxville, depending on what the situation is. But let's go back to this for a moment. So if we look at the venom of a snake, for example, this is some of the interesting things. You know that the taipan venom has been found to be able to be used in any major trauma or surgeries where they need to stop excessive bleeding. They can give you a dose of that using that antivenom. Stroke patients are now getting the ability for blood clots to be broken up in the middle of a stroke. They're using the venom of the pit viper, the Malayan pit viper. Then the cobras they're looking at for curing Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's.
Wow.
This is the next thing we're getting. So some of you, if you ever think you're getting at risk for any of these problems, get a snake. And we'll work on it from there. Me and Courtney will compound, and Christy, she worked for me. We'll compound something for you by the time we get done. The next one's copperheads. There is actually 2 studies right now, real current, that is looking for treating breast cancer with it. And then aging. The wrinkle creams have some components of snake venom. So whenever you all tell me that you're not a snake handler, you're lying. Because right here, I've got proof that some of you done got the use of it right there. Ginger done knows that if she gets wrinkle cream, she's got the venom. So she's already snake handling at this point. But we look at this and you say, now, wait a minute. Now, that's so random and strange to think about that. But there's one interesting thing the guy said on the documentary, and they do talk about it when you go up there to the Kentucky Reptile Zoo, and these snakes that they've got. This is the most interesting statement I've ever heard about a snake. Do you know that they will tell you that most snake bites don't happen when you pick it up, but when you try to set it back down? That's when most snake bites happen. If a person's handling a snake, it's not when they picked it up, it's when they set it back down. How easy is it to pick up a bad habit?
easy.
Real easy. Real easy to pick up a bad habit. But how hard is it to lay it back down?
Or
Hard.
Very hard. Very hard. we find ourselves in many, many things that we get our lives into. Now, Christy had Song of Solomon 2 and 15. Tell us what that verse says.
Thank us, the little foxes that spoil vines, for our vines have tender grapes.
Now, I just want you to think about this. We're talking about temptation now. How many do you think that has a problem or a habit or anything nowadays thought once upon a time, I'm just going to try a little bit of this? I'm just going to try a little bit of, just a piece of pie. I'm just going to have a small piece of pie, huh?
And that's it.
That's it. Or some people say, I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to do this once a month. I'm just going to do this once a month. I'll give you some examples of the habit that can come so infrequently that is absolutely temptation upon you from the devil. One of the things that is able to be done is when people lose interest in attending church. And so they will randomly at times make the decision that they are going to skip here and there. Now, I'm not talking due to medical reasons, illness, sickness, whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about that there is a loss of interest. And so then they choose to miss here and there. Certain things that they normally go to, they start skipping. And then the next thing is we start going to some places. I'll give you some examples. How many restaurants can you go eat at right now that doesn't have a bar?
Very few.
Very few. So then, let's just use Roger. He brought it up. Just very few. So Roger wants to go eat a rack of ribs at Texas Roadhouse. We get over there. There's just two. Me and him go over and eat. Just two of us. And the girl comes up, says, how many in your party? And Roger says, 2. And she says, okay. She says, you want to sit at the bar? Roger says, no. She said, well, I can get you right now. I can set you right at the bar right now. We'll go and get you seated, get you ordered. If you want to wait on the table, it'll be 2 hours.
Bar seat.
Huh?
Taking the bar seat, ain't gonna get no way.
Courtney's taking a bar seat.
I'm hungry.
Yeah. So that's the tick, the quick tick
Sweet tea, please.
yeah, of the temptation that comes is that we get to looking at the little things. It's not the bear, it's not the lion, it's not the wolf that everybody imagines being what's coming after you to tempt you. It's going to be the same little fox that Solomon wrote about in this very chapter. And you think about little fox can get into a mess of grapevine. And just think about it this way. The grapevine is all mingled and mangled up. It would be very hard for a lion or a bear or anything to get in there without being tangled up in a mess. But that little fox can get right in there and he can just start nibbing and chewing. Just start chewing. And eventually, just one chew and swallow at a time, he can destroy the whole vine that's existing because he can eat off the ground roots because he gets in and out of there like a toy. You see foxes, how well they get low to the ground and go right in. But just one bite and one little chew at a time is what it goes. So the more that you do these things, the more entrenched you become. But then when it's time to put them down, it's not so easy. A habit is easy to pick up, but it's not so easy to lay down. I pulled 2 Bible references to give you an example for a second. In Old Testament, foxes are mentioned in Judges 15. Samson ties torches. Now get this. Samson tied 300 torches to foxes and released them to destroy the grain fields of the Philistines. In Judges 15, little things. 300 foxes with a torch tied to them. He sent out in to destroy the grain fields of the Philistines. In Nehemiah chapter 4, evil Tobiah mocks the rebuilding of Jerusalem's wall and makes the statement, in other words, that even a fox climbing upon it would break down their wall of stones. So we see just a small thing, just a small effect is what gets us started. Now, I do have a question for you. Here's my question first. Why does God permit temptation?
Because he gives us free will.
Okay. Anybody else got anything to that? Huh?
You don't allow, you don't tempt.
No, but why does he permit it? Why does he permit temptation? That's the question. Why does he permit it? I pulled this from my Bible concordance, had this comment in there, and I pulled this out, and that's why I'm asking these questions. Why does God permit temptation?
Setting your own lust.
Yeah. Yeah. But God could just completely take all that away and you never be tempted. He could remove all that and that never be a problem, a habit. It would never form. So why does he allow it? Why, or not allow it, but why does he permit temptation to exist?
More dependent on him.
Okay. I'm going to show you what I pulled from one of my Bible concordance references, and I thought this was pretty interesting how it words it. But it is the necessary result of your freedom. As free persons who are invited to love God and to say yes to His will, we must be permitted to say no. There must be a real alternative to what God offers. And if God could force our yes, then we would not be free and our yes would have no real meaning. Further, if God were not to permit any alternatives, or if He did not allow us to know of these alternatives, again, our yes would lose most of its meaning. So on one level, temptation is the result of freedom and our call to love. Because if no didn't mean anything, and you didn't have the ability or reason to say no, there would be no yes. There would be nothing behind less. Now, my next question for you tonight, how does God limit temptation?
He makes a way to escape.
Okay. What else?
He goes in front of him, fights his battle.
Okay.
Fights the battle.
Okay. Any others? How does God limit the temptation? Any other thought? So, this one I thought was so interesting. Very different view for this part right here. I'd never seen this view that I recall. But God does limit some temptation to some extent. And here's what it said. He provides other holy sources of influence for us, limiting temptation by the simple fact that not everything is possible for us. You have your own physical limitations, intellectual limits, economic limits, and so forth. Neither can we have every choice available to us at all times. So often, choosing something excludes something else. Influences is a good example. The things that he gives us that we are able to decipher natural law. Let's go with that one. You are automatically given a natural human ability to perceive some things, to be able to interpret things. You are being able to hear, see. But you think about the fact of how many times are you using all your senses versus you really like what you heard. Maybe not what you've seen. I hear that a lot when politicians are running for office. Well, I really didn't like what he done, but I liked what he said. See, you don't use everything that God gives us. And all the things that we find, who had is that Ginger, 1 Corinthians 10:13?
Yeah, that's me.
Tell us what that says.
There hath no temptation taken you but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it.
Yes. You think about the fact of something that even your way of escape. Tell me a way of escape that God used to limit temptation.
Praying.
Huh?
Praying.
Yep. What else did he send?
Holy Spirit,
Okay. What else?
Word.
What else?
The Bible.
First, he sent the prophets. That was the first thing he sent. And then what he sent after the prophets? The prophets, the law, and then Jesus. Now, when we look at it, you've got direct revelation in the Bible that you read. You've got direct revelation in the very Bible you read, so that by faith you can access these means to be able to know how to endure and how to escape. First came the prophets, the law, and then Jesus himself. So, by looking at the ministry of the Lord teaching salvation, the reconciliation through his body and the church, God limits temptation and he gives us other good influences to balance what temptations do remain. But if you ever think about it, there's some things that people would just absolutely love to do and they can't medically do it. Their physical limitations, their medical limitations stops the temptation to do something. And in those extents, those are limitations that God has placed to actually, to some extent, limit what we actually do. Now, I'm going to ask you this before I show you. What's the difference between being tested and being tempted? Because they are not the same. So what's the difference?
Something tested you go through.
Okay.
Temptation, something that could go through. It sounded better in my head.
I'll give you some. Well, you're on the right path. I'm going to give you some examples to see
I didn't explain it right.
of where the Bible says that something was or someone was tested, but not tempted. Okay? I'm going to give you some examples. So look at this one. Job has everything taken away from him, including his children. The prophet Elijah experiences a great depression. The apostle John was banished to a secluded island. These men were not experiencing punishment for sin or immoral wrongdoing. Rather, their understanding of God was being deconstructed and reconstructed. They went through a process of losing parts of God they misunderstood or didn't fully understand in order to gain a more complete understanding of who God is. So God can and does use trials or testing as a normal part of life. So what did Satan say to the Lord about Job? What did he say to him? He wanted to do what?
Curse him to death.
Yeah? No. No, what did Satan ask to do to Job? Because Satan wanted to do something to Job. What's the Bible say there?
He wants to kill him.
Huh?
He won't take his life.
Yeah. That's the only thing he wasn't allowed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he wanted to test. He wanted to test Job. Had Job done anything wrong? Did Job give in to temptation and was put in some form of judgment? No. But he was tested. So when we look at testing things, separating things that we're tested in, he says that through trials and tribulations, I have what? I have overcome the world. Okay. These things will come. Trials and tribulations. They are not temptations. Testing is different than tempting. God will test you. Your faith will be tried like what? A refiner's fire. One that comes out purer in the end than it is when it went in. You think about it, God will test us, but he does not tempt us. So what are the sources of our temptation? There are some sources of where the temptation comes, where it roots out of. And we know the devil loves to meddle and mess with it, but where does the source of the temptation come from?
Head.
Okay. What else? Let me ask you this question. In the four Gospels, Jesus prayed, and I've actually seen this in several places that people say it's interesting that the Lord prayed this. And in the Lord's Prayer, he says, lead us not into temptation. Lead us not into temptation. What did that mean when he said that? Lead us not into temptation. God's not going to tempt us. So why in the Lord's very model prayer that we should be praying, why did he say, lead us not into temptation? Anybody know? What about the angle of looking at it that the Lord prayed, asking God not to permit us to be subject to a test or temptation that would be beyond our capacity to endure it? Give us grace to extendedly be able to withstand what does try to test us. And God, knowing that He's not a source of temptation, is attested at multiple places in Scripture. Now, Tony's got James 1:13 and 14. What did that tell us?
Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed.
So, we see that there is not a person in the world that has not experienced the solicitation or invitation towards something of temptations. The Lord Himself, you think about this for a moment, the Lord Himself gets baptized, and immediately from getting baptized, where does He end up? In the wilderness, where He was what? Tempted in every way. In every way, He was right after He got baptized. Now think about it. That's when it happened. The Bible records that as soon as He was baptized and He went out, that's the first place He got to, was when He went into the wilderness and He was tempted in every way. So Karen had 1 John 2 and 16.
For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world.
So, you've got three things coming as a source of temptation: the world, the flesh, and the devil. How does the world tempt you? How does the world do it? Huh? Yeah, but how do they do it? How do they do it? Give me an example. Just one. Huh?
TV.
All right.
Easy, accessible, it's right there in your face.
Convenience. Yeah. And how does the flesh, how does that be the source of temptation?
Feeling good.
I want it. I want it. And how does the devil be a source of temptation?
Eyes.
You need it.
Review it.
First I want it, and now you need it. So we find that it's a call for us to answer. You think about it that way. It's a call, a deceptive call for us to answer. And it is unfortunately a part of us to be human each and every day. Now, who had Matthew 15? Was that Courtney? All right, tell us what that says.
But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashen hands defileth not a man.
One of the interesting things that is in these verses is the fact that what comes out of the mouth comes from the heart. That's what defiles the man first. But out of the heart is where proceedingly these other problems are coming from. And those issues coming from rooting us to be tempted to act on. You can be angry, but you can't what? You can't sin. See? But when you get mad to the point of nuclear meltdown, now you're already at the level of prime temptation to just let her fly. Just blow her up and just say whatever you feel like saying. Is that not true?
Yeah.
That's how anger works. It leads us into another problem. Now, I'm going to give us another analogy for a minute of how you and I are in the picture of dealing with temptation. And this is a good analogy for us. A man said that he had a friend of his that had been begging him for the last few months to go fishing. And he goes out and he always hikes in the mountains and returns, and he always comes back and tells him all these good fishing spots. And he said, the whole time I'm thinking that he's telling me about all these good fishing spots and what he's caught, he said, I got to thinking how bad I felt for the fish. He said, because just something pathetic about a fish he said, I won't call him dumb, but he said, I'm going to say there's something bad about a fish that's being lured out of its shelter. It's being tricked by a false bait, trapped by a deadly hook, and then drug out of the water to its death against its own will. And he got into talking about fishing. He said, I don't want to sound like it's a depressing thing, because it's not. He said, but when you're the one, now think about this, when you are the one being fished, the whole situation gets a whole lot grimmer, because now it's a matter of life and death. See, when you're the one that's being fished, you're now the one that's life or death as to taking the bait. James is very clear about dealing with the trials that comes from God, but he also clearly tells you that God does not tempt us. He says that we are not to say that God has tempted me, because he does not do that. But he does test us to determine and not only strengthen us in our character, who we are, but the first reason that we can tell you a difference of a test and a temptation is if it lured you to sin, it was not a test of God. If it lured you into sin, it was not a test of God. Temptation, which is always leading us into. So when we look at temptation, first thing you got to think of it is this very, very great looking invitation to do something. It's a good desire, a draw that takes your thoughts and desires into getting you to want to do something. Did you know that temptation itself is not a sin? Temptation itself is not a sin. If you feel tempted, you have done nothing wrong yet. If you are tempted, you've done nothing wrong if you feel that way. But it is the actual inviting you to do evil. This is where the temptation problem's at, is it's the invitation for you to RSVP that you're going to come. You're going to do it. And if you feel temptation, that is all day long the pressures of this life that we live on the earth, by the world, the pride of life, listen, the flesh, all the things, the eyes, all of our things that draws us, the invitation to do something that leads to sin. And I'll give you easy examples of our own desires, how they can lead us into an issue of cravings. Here's an example. If you have the temptation to steal money from somebody else, it's because you have a greedy desire for the money. If you have the temptation to cheat on an exam, it's because you have a desire for success that is stronger than honesty. And if you have the temptation to have a relationship with someone, it's because you have the desire for pleasure. And everything can be traced back to an underlying sinful desire. Now, every man, when he is tempted and drawn away of his own lust, is enticed, the Bible says. Every man, when he is drawn away of his own lust, is enticed. In other words, we are the fish. Our desires is the bait. Who then is the fisherman in this picture? The devil. Who is trying to lure us and bait us to get away from the right? The devil, all day long. Now, it looks real good. When you're fishing, bait looks really good. You think about it. All of our temptations look good for us. Roger over here, if we can lay out him a full spread of all the little Debbie cakes and donuts and all the other good breads and stuff over here, you know, there's a very high temptation to want that. And why? Well, one, if you in your brain, it's good. Number two, you've had it before. You know what that tastes like, and you sure would like to try it again. And you find that over and over and over, just like a fisherman, if you catch good fish in a spot, what will you do?
Go back again.
You'll go back and do what? Throw the same bait.
It really meant.
You'll throw the same you'll throw the same bait over and over and over because it's what's going to catch. The devil does the same thing with us. Once he gets you once, he's going to use it again. He's going to come back to the same place, the same spot, and he's going to throw it again. The thing that gets interesting is that it promises the fish something that's not really there. You ever think about that? The bait looks like something that's actually going to be food, and it's in no effect whatsoever any food. Um, Temptation never gives you what it promises. You think about that for a moment. Temptations never give you what it promises. They're a lie to trick you into getting yourselves hooked and trapped. Just like bait, it is a deception for you to take the bait, and then when the hook is set, now you're in the trap. Do you know that most of the time when a fish eats, if you put a cricket on a hook and throw it in the water, when it first eats it, does it know it's been caught? No. Do it again, Courtney. Make sure we got that. That's right. Set the hook. Only when he tries, here's the catch. Now we're going back to this letting the snake down in just a second. You know, after the fishes eat the bait, it's only when he tries to swim away from it that he realizes there's something wrong. And at this point, he knows that he's not going in the direction he wants to go. Something is pulling him in the wrong direction. So a lot of times people that give into temptation, it's very subtle, but it's also so well deceived that we don't even realize that we're caught in the trap of sin at the first point of it. The first point of giving in, we don't even realize sometimes. And then we come to realize when we're caught, then trying to leave is not as easy. Jesus baptized, he goes into the wilderness. Think about it. This is some of the worst times for him and the best times for the devil to try him, because he's hungry, he's tired, he's alone, he's doing a good work, and now he's going into a place, and the devil even tells him, hey, you're hungry. Make that rock right there a loaf of bread and eat it. Go ahead. You're who you say you are. Go ahead and turn that stone into a loaf of bread. Right at the best times to get us is where problems going into. Lastly, there's some things with temptation that we have to learn. And one of those is, especially just in the world of dealing with problems, is very prominent that we see this. So let's see, who had Proverbs chapter 4? What's them 2 verses say on there?
Enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not into the way of evil men. Avoid it, pass not by it, turn from it, and pass away.
If you're going to the places where temptation will most likely occur, then we know we're already headed down the wrong path. The first thing we should be doing is avoiding everything that leads to trouble. We should be avoiding every possible avenue that we know leads us into something we've already been able to overcome. But if you already did something and liked it once, the devil knows it. He's coming back to the same spot, and he's going to throw the same bait out. We're going to have to learn, first of all, to be able to resist temptation. We are going to have to avoid going to some places and avoid those areas in our lives to do. Okay, let's see here. Tim had 2 Timothy 2:22. Tell us what that said.
Flee also youthful lust, but follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace with them that call on the Lord out of a pure heart.
The key word in this verse is the first word of the verse.
Flee.
What does that mean?
Run.
Run. If anything tries to get you to do something to sin, run. What did I teach us a couple of weeks ago? Run for your lives. Get away from it before it gets you hooked and you take the bait, and now you can't get away from it. Don't stop. Now think about this. How much of us wants to process things in our mind? We want to think about it. We want to consider all the avenues that this could do, and this could be good or bad. We hesitate to turn around and get away. We hesitate to get away from things. And then, interestingly, not only does he tell you that to get away from those youthful lusts, the very next thing he says is, but follow. Meaning, when you turn around and get away from the problem, you need to be running toward some other directions. And these things that we know that are pleasing to God, and I'll give an example of faithfulness as an easy example. We need to learn that we need to be turning and getting away from some things, but we need to be running toward something else. If you're making a 180 You need to be making sure you're getting away from something that's trying to draw you into trouble or get you into something. I've got a friend. He always tells a testimony that he used to run with friends all the time that drank like crazy. They drank every day, all the time. They drank, and he ran with them all the time. And he said the next thing you knew, a year or two later, he's drinking with them, and he's drinking as much as they are. And he said, I sat there and wondered one day, how did that happen? How did I get to that point? He said, then I looked around and realized the only reason that I ever was introduced to it was the people I was sitting with. He said, because nobody in my family or anything else, he said, drank. None. Zero. He said, then I realized that all that time that I was saying, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be like them. I'm just going out with them because they're my friends. And slowly, the bait looked so good that it went so fast and so subtle that we don't even see and realize it until it's already here. And now, that's not a habit we can just say I'm done and I'm not doing it anymore. Smokers. Chris May been here. He used to love to smoke, and to this day, the craving for a cigarette still comes every now and then. High stress load, you want to pick one up and smoke. And how easy would it be just to stop? How many places could Chris stop between UT and Goins Chapel and pick up?
About 10 of them
He stops at 10 of them for cigarettes.
per day.
I'm
No,
just joking.
for drinks,
Coffee,
candy,
yeah.
coffee.
But think about it. How many places is there between there and home in an hour that he could stop and get a cigarette? No problem. No problem. He's of legal age. It would be no issue. They're legal. He's not even doing anything illegal. But in the matters of the fact that it's something he's already done and overcame, that's a trigger point.
When you got home.
Huh?
When you got home.
What?
Smell it.
You smell it. We ain't even got that part yet. But you think about how easy it would be. He done knows what it's like to smoke. People that drink beer knows what it's like to drink beer. They did that for a reason. They like the feeling, the buzz that they get. The people that crave nicotine like the effect that it's a time out. A lot of them tell me it's a time out. The time it takes to smoke that cigarette's the time they can go get their mind off or get away or whatever. They crave that nicotine and that draw. And that habit forms. You know that sugar is 20 times harder to break than cocaine. A sugar addiction to the human brain is 20 times harder than to stop using cocaine. So habits form and are much, much harder to turn and get away from and undo a habit that we get to. But it all sprigs from one thing. You think about it, all the temptations all come and sprig from one thing. And it first births from a thought in your mind. The more you think about it, even thinking about how much you need to avoid it, the more power it's got. When it comes to the mind and you think about it and how much you need to avoid it, that's how much more power that it has. Knowing that your thoughts are the first seed of every temptation that comes. What do we need to do to replace those thoughts? What do we need to do?
Pray, read the word.
What'd you say, Rick?
Mind off of it.
Okay.
Study the scripture.
Okay. One of the things that I find that people struggle with is this random reading stuff. Have you ever thought about the fact that in the back of your Bible there is a concordance? And I just opened this one up particularly, but I'll give you an example of in this one right here. If I go over to temptation, this is something you might want to consider doing sometime. But if you go over to temptation in this chain reference here, temptation tells us that there are multiple chains that go along this, and all the specific Bible verses that mention or specifically tie to temptations. The one thing that we should be doing is looking at the word directly for what we're being tempted with. Does that make sense? If you're being tempted with something specific, that's what you should be studying and finding in the book to replace what is in your mind. Do you know how many people are misperceived on what the Bible says about things and they assume that the Bible's okay with it, and then later they're like, oh no. I'll give you an example. I was at a church one time and they had a raffle at a church dinner. And then they had pull tabs like bingo to win money and prizes. the preacher that was with me, I thought was going to be worse than the Lord turning over the change tables, because he literally, as soon as he walked in, we didn't know this was going down. We went there for this service, but we did not know this was going to happen. He no more than got that door open, and he pulled that book out and he wore them out for an hour. Preached in that building while they were eating, all over bringing that into that building. But they had all perceived that it wasn't gambling. This was not gambling. This was for some type of charitable thing they were doing, and that wasn't gambling. And they assumed and perceived that to be perfectly okay. So the first thing you and I should be doing when this temptation comes, Courtney's got an anger problem because of work. So, those things come, that they're real, but when you, no, but when these things come, dealing with that, it would make a lot more sense for me to study that very thing in this book. If you have heart disease, I don't need to be looking in podiatry, okay? If you have a problem with your eyes, I don't need to be in dentistry. It doesn't make sense. You don't go to those doctors for the wrong problem. Don't be in the book in the wrong place. Look up specifically what the devil is tempting you with. That is your way of escape. See, the escape plan's done written. You got to look it up and find it. He said something in Psalms 119. I wrote these down. He says, "Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereto according to thy word. Thy word have I hid in mine heart, that I might not," what?
Sin.
Where is that very verse at? We have that verse in something we do in this church. What is it? Let me read again. Thy word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against thee.
Place to the Bible.
There you go. Yeah, I pledge allegiance to the Holy Bible, God's holy word, and will make it a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path. And what? Hide its words in my heart, that I may not sin against God. There it is. So one of our leading things in Psalms 119 that David even wrote was that how can a man cleanse his way? The first thing he says is by taking heed according to thy word. See, if I don't look up my problems, I'll never find the answer. If I don't research the issue that I'm having problems with, I'll never escape. You see, the point here we're getting to is that the answers are in here, but you can't just randomly fly them around. There's plenty of things for our own use to be a useful tool for us in what we use. There is one of the last things about temptation that you need to remember, and this is one of the things that's Bible, but we turn it around and misinterpret something. It is not an if, but when. The focus of temptation is to separate you from God. That's the whole purpose in temptation, is to separate you from God, to have you forget about God so that your focus turns solely on yourself and what you want. And when you try to pull the Adam, as we'll call it, what did Adam do when God called them out on what they did and they ate of the fruit of the tree?
That woman,
It's her fault.
Yep.
It's her fault because she tricked me into eating it. That thought is the same thought that James wrote in chapter 1 that he's trying to contradict, because God is nowhere engaged in trying to bring you into sin. It's not there. God has no way of engaging you that would lead you into sin and away from Him. Now, I believe it this way. God does permit evil and temptation to exist, but being holy and having no other part in the process that leads to sin. It does exist, but there is no process. You are a free will moral agent making your own decisions. God never authors or directs anything with temptation, so you can't blame it on Him. You can't say, well, God made me do that. How many people we said in the class recently back, everybody says, well, the devil made me do it. No, the devil tempted you, and you did it. You chose to do it. It cannot be blamed on anybody else because it's directed at all of the selves. That's how you know where the blame can be directed. Temptation is directed at the self. It's myself, yourself, ourselves. It's all the selves is what temptation gets hooked to. As the same as what we read in James 14. But it's not an if, it's a when. You could quit smoking, you could quit drinking, and I've seen people that have quit 30 years, 40 years, 6 months, 2 weeks. Sharon will tell you, Jimmy, they've quit smoking I don't know how many times, too many to count. But what do? They go back and they pick it back up. See, when you overcome something and you know what that's like to do it, but the devil knows you remember what you liked about it, and he's going to bring that bait back and put it in the same spot every time to get you to take it. Every time. That's why it's not an if, it's a when. And Sharon all the time, she'll say, this time, what did she say a couple weeks ago? She said, this time I've not smoked an X number of time. This time. Well, if you tell me that, it ain't building my belief up this is going to be the last. Because you keep saying, this time. And the devil knows that. And if he can just get, Jimmy's the example, if he can get Jimmy just mad enough to blow up, that's all it takes to get him to flip the turn to possibly go back and do it again. So watching our temptations is a big one. Watching the temptations is a big one. Anybody got anything tonight to add? Anybody?